Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the newer version of string formatting with the .format method that is available with all the strings in Python 2.7 and above. Okay, so what is it? So in every string you have, here's a string, you have a function, you have the ability to run this format function afterwards. If it sees curly braces on the inside here, with like a keyword or a positional argument, this is a positional here, it'll take any value that it has and it'll plop it into this location. So let me show you on this other cheat sheet that I put together. I created a printable PDF for you to keep at your desks because this can be kind of difficult to kind of wrap your head around initially, and I hate looking it up online because I just need sort of a cheat sheet, and I couldn't find a really good visual cheat sheet. So whatever value is sort of inside between these bold parentheses here will either positional or keyword will be plopped in here based on what the argument is. If it's 0, then it knows it's a positional, so it'll put it in the first position. It'll take the first value. Otherwise, it'll take the second, the third, etc. Okay, so let me explain that a little better here. So this here, very first thing is called the field name. Okay, and that can be either a positional argument or a keyword if it's a dictionary. Okay, and yeah, so this can also be really cool because it can be objects with attributes. So you can pass in an object over here in the format section, and then just refer to the attribute over here, and it'll actually format it. It's actually pretty cool. Okay. Anyway, there's also this other section here you can put in with an exclamation point, which is like a pre-format. So it'll coerce the value into some format before you actually send it into the format spec. And I'll explain what coercion is here in a little bit, like in terms of string formatting, because I have a good example of why it doesn't work in this format and what the heck it is. Okay, so don't worry about that now. And in fact, I actually don't think I'll ever use this in this class ever. I just want you to know this exists. So you can just put this exclamation point S, R, or A in there, and it'll just convert it before it still sends it over here to be formatted by this format spec. So let me go ahead and demonstrate kind of our beginning additions, like the Oswald Cobblepot edition, etc., like using the new version of string formatting, so that I can explain it a little better here. Okay, so and I'm going to see if I can copy and paste up here. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this all down here so we don't have to retype all of it. Okay, so copy all that for now. Actually, I'll just copy all of it, and then we'll just format each one. There we go, just copy all that, give ourselves some space, put this here, go up. Okay, so we reestablish, let's go up a little bit here, and get this as well. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll put this all here. And up here we'll do .format versions. Okay. So we've got OS and we get the username. We've got that already. So if I just highlight that, it's me. So to replace this, here we would actually, instead of a %s, you would just put brackets like that and put a 0. And then we get rid of all this part right here. And then say .format. And put anything we need inside these parens like this. So let me not make it upper here. Let's just keep it simple. I added that in for Spice earlier. But if I just print that, what do I need here? Oh yes, I need another bracket here. So the format is getting its own brackets like this, and then the print command is getting its own. So I did need that extra one here. Okay, so this will print it. So what's happening is it takes this value of this variable, plops it in here, right? So we get the same thing here. We can just do this, but you can do positional. So you can do, let's see here, 0, and then you can do 0 or do 1 like this, and just do .format, and we'll just leave that as is. So this was a tuple. Now it's actually just going to be the contents of our print statement here. So what you can say is my real name is Oswald Cobblepot. But the cool thing is you can reverse these if you wanted to, right? Like this. And you can't do that with the %s version because it has to be in order, right? So if I did this now, it would be Cobblepot Oswald. So you just essentially reverse these. So it's basically positioning. Let's go ahead and put it back. Okay. Same thing with the dictionary. You can plop these guys in here. Okay, so we have a dictionary that just has first name and last name in it for Oswald Cobblepot, the penguin. And I just have to change this out here. So what we have to do now is I just have to put the name of the key in here. So first name, and we'll just put brackets around this, last name. And you notice I'm not putting S. You don't have to put S here by default because it assumes S is the default. So let's look back at our cheat sheet real quick here so we can explain. If it has an empty conversion thing, it uses string, which is this whole thing is empty right here. We're going to go into that here in a second in more detail. If it's non-empty, but right now if it's empty, it just uses string, so it's just a little bit cleaner. The problem with this is I need to unpack this dictionary in here, and we did talk about it earlier. I kind of wanted to show you that unpacking method so that I could show you this. Okay, so if I print this up, you can see that I am failing. Oh, I still got the percent sign. Dot format. Okay, and then we'll close up this guy right here like that. So if we just have the dot format and we unpack the dictionary into this and then place that into the dot format, we should get a proper print. So let's just clear the history. Let's open this up a little bit and we'll scroll down a little bit and we'll run it. So you'll see it'll get first name and last name. So it's actually pretty cool. You just have to unpack the dictionary into this location right here. Okay, so that's pretty nifty. Pretty useful ways. It's way better than just doing like what we were doing earlier when we were doing print statements and just like adding string, you know, a float value in there. It's just way more useful than this. So I'm glad I'm showing you this. We're going to use this from now on. So let's create another random integer real quick here and just see what the value is. Just see what a float is, just so we can see. Cool. 26.3. So let's just see if .i works as before. So what we'll do is if you're going to do anything other than S, it has to come after a colon. Okay? So let's go ahead and put our code in here. And we'll do colon I. We'll try I because I was the one previously that made an int. And we'll say dot format. And I know it's going to fail. I'm going to explain why though. Okay. I wanted to show the error. So let me just pull this down a little bit here and we'll clear the history. Okay, so I've got the format, and if I plop it in here, there's no format code called I, so they've gotten rid of that for format, for the format method. So they actually use D as the decimal point function, and they use that to create ints. So it's kind of hard to explain, but if I use this, it still gives me kind of an error. And the reason is the thing called coercion, forced coercion. In the previous version of this, I can run this same code here. I'm going to copy it and bring it over here. Okay, and we'll put a float here. Float. So this is two different versions of the string formatting right here, the old way and the new way. So let's just clean it up here. Okay, so if I run this command, it actually works. It cuts off whatever is on the trailing end of 26 like this. But this is called forced coercion, which means I'm formatting a number in two different types. I've just converted types. It was a float and now it's an integer. So I've done this with string formatting. And in the newer versions of Python, this is considered bad juju. You really don't want to do that. What you really want to do is provide the proper final value you want here, and then we'll just show it the way you want. So formatting is literally formatting. It's not conversion at all. But the older versions here, using the percent sign, will force convert, and that's called forced coercion, okay? So if I actually ran this code again, and I errored, like this, it would give me an error. It's saying that this int version, this decimal integer, doesn't have a float command. They're two different types, right? So the way we kind of get around that is using 0 precision on the float version of this. So if I copy this whole thing right here, copy, there is a format code called F, just like the one that we see down here below for floats, right? And guess what? It uses the same dot precision value for precision. So if I copied this and just kind of brought it up here, put it in here like this, .4, and I just ran it, and this is not an int now, it's a float. Let's clear history, and we'll just run this right here. You'd see what it does is it gives me 4 values for the percent. This is at 0.4 precision. It looks exactly kind of the same as the previous version, so you really don't have to learn too much if you're formatting stuff. There's just a lot more stuff to learn. What you can do, if you wanted to make it an integer, is just make it a 0 precision, right? So if I just highlight this here, I get 26. So it takes the float value and just cuts the part off. The bad part about this is that it will round the number. So it is rounding the number for you. It's a float operation. So if my a float was temporarily like 26.7, some numbers after like that, right? So this number is greater than 0.5. This part is greater than 0.5. What you'll notice is it'll actually round it up to 27. So 0 precision does the rounding. It will do rounding. Okay, just to keep that in mind. So if you indeed absolutely want this number to just be 26, what you can do is put the float in there and then cast it to an integer, which is what the new versions of Python want you to do. Cast it to an integer as you're putting it in. So you can actually do that there or this. You can say int. Like this. Actually, let's do this up here. So here's a float. We would cast it to an int first so that it knows what type it needs to be. We could do that, and then that all gets floated. So now 26. So it would just lop off the end of this right here. So it would just lop it off. So the very first thing we inted it, and then we formatted it using this value right here. But if you're already inting it like that, you can just get rid of this whole thing like this and just put it in like that, because you've already formatted it. It's just going to put it in as a string, right? So you don't need -d or %d or .d. That's a pretty long, confusing explanation. I hope it's not too bad. All right, so let's generate a new float value to get back to where we were. Let's not use this at all. Let's just generate a whole new float just so we can play some more. So what is the value of that float? I just want to know. Okay, 39.9. So let's go ahead for a little bit more floating. So if I ran this just with %f as we did before, we would get 39.9 and it would give you 6 trailing, right? So let's do this with the new version. So we'll copy it. Control V. And instead of %f, we put everything in curly braces. Curly braces with a :f. Curly braces. So now if we ran this, whoops, I gotta add this dot format. It's a little bit more typing, but you actually have a lot more power, I think. So you basically get the same results, the cool part. And if you wanted to add some formatting like this, you totally can. So let's copy this, Control copy, and some padding. The cool part about this is you can control with this format spec. So if we go back here, I'll do the big reveal now of the format spec. The format spec is way more powerful than you can imagine. So if I scroll down here, this is the format spec of the PDF cheat sheet here. So here, you'll notice how much longer it is than the other one. And we've just been doing these parts right here. You can add in the optional comma here to let it know what, if you have more than 1,000, that it actually will put that comma in there. This is good for, if you're formatting money, numbers, etc. Width is pretty cool because it's an integer that will define width. And then if you want to pad, you can add zeros here, so you can pad 4 pad and afterwards. And this is new, actually adding the pound symbol here. This will add the OB, OO, or OX in front of like binary, octal, or hex if you're doing that. Now there's also optional sign, and there's 3 options for that. There's plus, minus, and just a space. So if you do a plus or a minus, if it's positive, it'll add a positive value. If you do a minus, it'll add a minus. If you leave space, it'll use the positive ones that'll leave blank, but if there's a negative number, it'll add a negative number. So this adds an intelligence sign in there. So this sign, if you leave it blank here with just a space, it tells it what to do. And then you can use this align function here. So there's an align code to align left, right, center, and force padding after a sign number. So there's all these little codes here. I'm actually not going to show you all of them. I'm just going to show you a little bit of formatting here, maybe left and right, and then I'm gonna leave it for you because it's impossible to actually memorize all this stuff, and I don't expect you to. That's why I created a cheat sheet so that I can come back to this whenever I need to know how to format something. So the best way to do it is keep this on your desk, taped to your monitor or something, and then when you actually get to the formatting, you can actually come back and go, now, what is it I need? Padded zeros to 4 or something like that? Yeah. So let's go back to Maya and actually work on some examples here for a second. Okay, I'm going to clear this out here for now. So we have a new float. Let's just make sure we got a new float. And it's 39 point something or other. It's really long here. Okay. So I'm going to copy and paste some stuff in here so you guys don't have to see me type and get annoyed. Okay. So you can get a precision with 12 decimal places with the old method. So if I just printed this like this, you'd see the old method gets 12 decimal places out. This is pretty cool. To achieve this, you don't need this 0 right here. You can leave that off. But this is the first position, and then this is the formatting value. So if you just ran this right here, you would get the same value, right? But like I said earlier, you can actually add some padding in here. So let's put an int of 20. So the number is bigger. Let's just run it real quick here. And what you'll see now is there's 20 value pretty much all the way to the end here. So there's 12, and then there's padding of 8. All right. So we can also use that to say left justify. So if you just put this left justify right here and ran it, copy, left justify, we'll just put this one here like this. Okay, this one is left justify. But it would still have the trailing values because it needs to fill the zone of 20. So in the other version it had them at the beginning, and the other one it has it at the end here. So you can see I'm scrolling over here. You can see they're hidden. They're just empty. So you can actually put a fill value in there. So let's just put something to fill in there. We'll just call it, we'll put the @ symbol. I want to see what that does. So that pads the tail end of your thing with ats. So let's do it at the other side here. So we'll right justify here and just print it here. So you can see it just, you can fill any character here you want. So it doesn't have to be spaces. I can put anything in here. It's super cool. Yeah. Okay, hang on. And don't worry about this code. Like if you look at this right here, it's completely almost unreadable unless you've done a bunch of this. That's why you have a cheat sheet. Okay. So the types that you have, let me go ahead and show you the types that are available to you here. Let me just show and pan up. So by default for strings, there's just S, and if you don't put anything in there, it will be S. For integers, you have B for binary format, characters from Unicode. So you can put a number in there and get the character Unicode. It's kind of useful for web coding, etc., stuff like that. Integer types, I usually use D if you just want to format it as an integer. Now in the floating types here, there's some really cool new things here. So this is a little bit more detailed. So this bears going over. So exponent just puts an E or an E, and it's the same personality as the previous version of for string formatting. So if you actually go over to Maya real quick here, and I'll copy and paste a value here so you can see. Control copy so we can actually look, so we don't have to type because this video is getting long. Right, so if you just want to justify it with filled with zeros for like 20 characters, you can print this number right here. So this will just fill it with empty zeros, right? And if it's negative, it'll actually put a negative value here. If it's positive, it'll do it. So, and then it creates an exponent version. And if you just do a capital E, it'll actually do it like that as well. And if the number is really big, you can put a G in here, like a lowercase g, just a general number. And in general, if the number is nice and small, like just 39.9, but if it gets too big for the value that's inside here, it'll go to exponent mode automatically. So that's what G does. G will actually go to an exponent mode if it gets too large. Okay. N is the exact same thing as G, except it'll add that insert separator, the one that we actually, this little separator thing here, your custom separator. So there's a lot of really cool things you can actually do with string formatting. And to just illustrate the string format with the separator here, hold on real quick, control copy. All of these will be in the notes, all of my examples. So if I just did string formatting in this with the value right here, you can actually just see what the value is. So it just comes back 1,234,000,000, etc. I'm sorry, 1,234,000. Yeah, that's right, 1 billion. Wow, I'm losing my mind tonight. Okay, so I created this little cheat sheet for you, and we'll go ahead and look at the whole thing in view here. So this is a printable PDF. You can actually look at it as needed for string formatting. So if I'm string formatting something in the video and you're not exactly sure what I'm doing, you can actually take a look at this, and hopefully it'll give you an idea of what I'm doing. Okay, that's a long video for string formatting, but I think it's super useful. Okay, if you have any questions, let